This could be one of my YA movies. I watched a movie called Pleasantville, and although I think it was very liberal, it brought up a lot of conflicts in me. And when you think about values and what you think are good, and in the movie they did a lot of bad things, and a lot of colour came out, and at the end, the main character says we're not supposed to be anything. The mother was saying, but I'm supposed to be this, I'm supposed to be that, and he says, no, you're not supposed to be anything. Meaning, I think that anyone can be anything, whatever they want. In one part, there's a court case, and he goes on about how great it is that teenagers are making out in the streets or something, and a nude woman's painted on a window, and they what seemed to be like white supremacists smashed the window in disgust and shock over the window. And I got to thinking about values and the values I value and what I think of them. And I don't like the current way the world is because I don't like the way it's becoming. And although I don't fully understand what God wants, and I don't think any of us do, I would hate to be in a position where I was to stand out there and tell everyone how to live and how to be. I know what I believe, I know what I think, and I know how I think, and what I think the world should be, or I know what I think how people should think. Now, we all do that. We all sit there and say, they should, like white supremacists would say, I think everyone should think this way. Hitler simply did. And people try to put their oppressions in other people's minds because they assume they have some kind of superior knowledge in how other people should be. And I don't go with that. I've had my whole life of people have been telling me how I should be and how I should live and how I should think and what I should do. And when I finally got the chance in the last 10 years to 15, 17 years, 18 years to try and develop into who I am, I think I just clung on to the values I had in the past. Hopefully, I've become more understanding. I think it's very special that you become understanding. So, you're a person in front of me who's going to have an abortion. I don't believe in abortion, I think it's horrific. But I should be understanding of your reasoning, at least to the extent where I understand that some where in your life you came to this point where you think it's all right to do what you intend on doing. And I think also in understanding we can help talk people out of doing things that they might regret later. And so I think it's important to have good values and good moral standards and decency. We can't always be perfect, and we're not going to be in life in the future. No matter how good you are, it's never going to be perfect because it's a physical world. Things change, you know, and you can't predict every day. And you might be in the wrong place at the wrong time and something happens and you're not happy about that. It's the things where you choose to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like if a gossip comes to your home, do you choose to listen to it and entertain it, or do you choose to shut it down? I haven't heard gossip in a long time, but people used to come up and gossip, and I used to look at my mother's and I used to play games with the gossiper in the sense where I'd say, no, really? And I'd be really cheeky, or I'd go, I'd start saying something good about the person they're gossiping about. I'd search my mind to find something good about them. And even if I was a bad person, and then watch the person's face as I keep countering their gossiping. But the thing here is what we entertain and what we um because what we entertain we make come true, and we accept bad things if we entertain them. And as they say, that famous saying, the devil will find something to do for idle hands to do. So when people are bored, they can be tempted into something they'll regret later. I kind of like the idea of bringing up our children to have confidence, courage, and to believe in the world and believe in themselves, and know what they want to do, and know who they want to be, and let them develop at their own pace in their own way to what they want to be. Sometimes life's not perfect and they might have to rush. And say, like in medieval times, you've got a page boy helping a knight, or because there were times where um, people were forced into knighthood because a war broke out. So a breaks out, and you're not ready, but you have to do what you have to do, and so you have to learn quickly. Your life depends on it, and other people's lives depend on it. And it's like that with normal life. Like you might be struggling with heights, and you're having issues with heights, and then the neighbour's child gets caught up in a tree, and you're the only adult there. You have to get up there, or teenager, you have to get up there and get the kid down. And so sometimes life's not perfect, and we do the things we don't want to do. There are uncomfortable decisions, uncomfortable times, but it's the choosing between good or bad. It's the deliberate, intentional choosing to do a bad thing, and then deluding ourselves and pretending that the bad thing that we're doing is a good thing, and believing that we're a hero. I've seen a lot of that in the last 17 years. People, and it's been very alarming, people believing that they're a really good person while they're actually doing bad things to other people, and especially people who can't defend themselves. They've got mental issues or they're struggling, and these people are actually deliberately, intentionally, they have a huge advantage over them, and they're taking advantage of that advantage they have over the other person and using it for their personal gain at the detriment and the suffering of the other person. And that's deliberately, that's what you call evil. It's deliberately partaking in a bad act and doing. I'm seeing, I'm accepting the word evil a lot more in the last 17 years. You have good and evil instead of good and bad. There is bad. Bad is when you walk up to the person and you push them over in the street. Evil is pushing them in front of a car or under the wheels of a car. So evil is an intention, a deliberate, active intention to do an injustice to another person to the extent where they can be crippled mentally, physically, and you change the path of their future to a very negative way. That if you hadn't stepped into that person's life, it would be so much better for them and for you too. Because everyone who does bad, I fully believe, will get paid out for it. You'll always get what you. That's the one rule in all atheism and all religions. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Every single one of them says you'll get what you deserve. You get what you give to shout to other people. And so it's kind of, and it can happen immediately or it can happen in the future. And when it does, it can be, the I think the Christian one is it's 10 tenfold of what you do to others. So if you bully people for 10 years and then your season's up sort of thing, then you might get crippled or something really bad might happen. Or as I say, in the afterlife, after you die, then you have to deal with it with God or your own conscience. I read once that they said that after you die, it's your own conscience that you have the problem with. So, it's kind of, life's about choosing to do the right thing. In the movie I just watched, I think it's Toby Maguire, I think his name is, he, the liberal thinking is anyone can do anything. People making out the street, because it leads to abortion, unwanted children, which leads to unwanted marriages, unwanted relationships, violence, and all sorts of stuff. It's not good. So I believe in values where if we teach our children right, they won't make dumb decisions like we did. They'll make better decisions, and I'd like to see a future like that. But it's not based on me telling people how to live. It's based on them, the children being brought up right, so much so that they value love and a happier life I'm having trouble speaking. They prefer that to a risky, dangerous, exciting life. Well, people call that exciting. I always enjoyed family life, and I found that like the thing I loved the most doing was homeschooling. And friends used to say to my ex-wife, they used to say when they got her aside, they'd say, "What's wrong with him?" And she'd say, "What do you mean?" And they'd say, "Why doesn't he want to come down and have a drink with the guys? Or why does he want to stay home all the time? What's wrong with him?" And she'd say, "No, that's just the way he is." And they'd say, oh, that's strange. And that's because I have the mentality of a man who goes, a pioneer from the 1800s in any country in the world, who goes along with his family or his wife. They find a piece of forest land, the wilderness, and they level it with an axe, takes weeks, months. Then they build a cabin, then they plant, they're planting gardens. She does all the stuff she does, he does all the stuff he does, then she has a baby, and so on. That's the mentality I have. I like that idea extremely much. When I prayed to God for a wife in 2004, I asked for that. I asked for a bit of land, and I actually said to raise, what's that? It was from a Huckleberry Hound video we used to have. The kids used to watch it all the time. Huckleberry Hound kept getting caught into all sorts of adventures, and he kept saying, but all he wanted to do was have a little piece of land and raise goats and pigs or something like that, just have a little bit of farmland. And I always thought of that. And that's my mentality. My mentality isn't this fast-paced world. It isn't fame and fortune and all that. I would be extremely happy without any electricity, living out in the whatnots by myself or with a wife and children. And animals around me, with the way issues I have with cats and dogs and things, I wouldn't be surprised if I had wildlife living on my doorstep. But the thing here is this: that's how I think, and it that kind of thinking flows on to everything I believe in. and therefore everything I believe in is, it's all the indecency, unfairness, immorality, cruelty, and all those things of the world, I could turn away from in a split second. And if I end in this piece of land far, far away from everybody, I would be so happy. But I could also be very happy in a nice place where there are a lot of people around, if the people around had the same kind of thinking. Not because I want them to be replicas of me, but because the kind of thinking that I have is peaceful. It's harmless, it's humble, it's quiet, it's not being a loner, it's living a place in a place where, see, if you lived out there, there's wildlife around, so it's going to be exciting. And there's going to be people in neighbouring farmland or whatever, and you can swap and trade and have fresh water and da 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 da, and it sort of goes like that. So it's all wonderful and good, and it's how I'd like to be. Even horse and buddies, kind of like the Amish, but not quite like the Amish. They're it's the organized religion thing I don't get with. I get with the more living God's ways, but not in an organized, established church denomination created form of laws and ways according to their church and their beliefs and their doctrines and their what's that word, dogma. Whereas I just think, you be a nice person, you be honest, you be true. There was a time where the big business deals were done by handshake. Two men would talk, they'd meet and they'd talk about something and they'd shake hands and they'd say, right, it's great, and they'd shake hands. And from that moment on, the two would do everything they could to make it work out because they'd shook each other's hands. Nowadays, no one trusts each other, and therefore it's all lawyers. There's a rumbling noise outside. So that's how I want to love, and that's how I want to be, and I'm probably never going to have that. But I want to make the video to let people know it's possible. A lot of the videos I put up on the internet are not professional. I don't intend them to be professional. They're all off my head. Very few I've got any form of planning whatsoever. I get an idea, I sit down, I talk about it. That's it. I just want people to think about the future and about the different subjects, and that life can be different and life can be a lot better. Now, people might say indecencies, decencies, prudish. No, because you don't shame yourself when you don't do indecent things. You keep your self-respect, your self-worth and your confidence, and you feel good about yourself. Good moral standards goes along with a better society. Like if our politicians were humble and had good moral standards, the world would be a wonderful place. Believe me, it would be a lot better. But they're all into careers, power struggles, money, etc., etc., etc. So the world is not a wonderful place. So if we chose politicians according to good standards and good values, we'd have a better world. So that's kind of how I think. And if we bring our children up with good moral standards, and they can see the value of good and bad, and they make the choices, once they leave home, it's up to them what they chose. And that's free will. They can go be a good person, be a bad person, whatever. It's their choice. You've done your best. You did all you could to make them the best person you could do. And no one's perfect, no parent's perfect, but you tried your best. And I wanted that chance to do that when I prayed to God in 2004. I said, I want to try again and I want the opportunity to do that. And it's not come. But in my writings and the Facebook page and the internet, I mean, my page on the internet, the idea is just to get people thinking, especially younger people, thinking out of the square and hopefully making good, decent, honest, and maybe just choices that when they're going to make a choice, they're not just thinking of themselves, they're thinking of the other people who will be influenced by the decision they make, how it might affect their lives, but also future generations. So it's not just, I want this, this is for me, this is my career, I want this money, I want to shine to the world. It's not that. It's about, if I make this choice, how many people will be affected, and positively or negatively, and then down the road, down the future, how will it affect the world or the company or the people around me or my family or my friends, and is it for good, is it for bad? And if it's for bad, then I don't want anything to do with it. If it's for good, then I'll make the steps. But if it's like, the whole basis is on a good result, like God mentions a good downline, which means all the people from you onwards who will benefit in a wonderful, great way from what you're teaching or what you're doing or the decisions you're making today. So this is the kind of effect the video had on me, because, see, I can't do, there are things on left and right in politics that I agree with on both parties, but there are some things I just can't agree with. And I can't go in those directions. So when I see videos where they're promoting those things, I have this internal struggle in my head telling myself how I don't like it. And there's some Hollywood actors and actresses that I will not watch in a movie, even if I want to watch the movie. When they put that person in the movie, I don't want anything to do with that, because they just ruin it for me. Because I know it just affects me. So yeah. But anyway, so those are some of my feelings about how I feel about having values. And I want to do a video where I explain where good moral values will actually make the world a better place. It's when we have universities and schools and that, when you go to them, they teach you about, say, sex with each other, and casual sex, and how it's all good and it's all fine and everything's fine, just protect yourself. If they taught good values in that, and waiting, and falling in love for once, my thoughts always were, people spend years and years looking for the right one, sleeping with heaps of people, shaming themselves, doing things they regret. And if you just, in the beginning, you read about all those people that found the right one in the beginning and stayed with that person all their life and never married anyone else, and you think, well, they never got sick of each other. It worked out. They worked it out. So I suppose then maturity has a lot to do with love, true love as well. I believe in real romantic love, holding hands, giving gifts, hugging, waltzing in the lounge, listening to music, like a summer place or autumn leaves or something like that, and just sinking into each other. I really like that. Sinking into each other till you become one. I think it's beautiful. And I wish that on everybody, but they're not going to get it unless they believe it's possible and they even know it exists. Most of the young people today, all this casual sex and stuff, they have no idea about sinking into another person and loving that person forever. They have no idea. They just know that marriage is when you have a mutual agreement to get together, and that's why we have so many divorces, because it's pen and paper and it's not real love. So you're not going to get a loving world without the young people today not knowing what love is and what a loving world is or what empathy is. They cry for it. They talk about it all the time. They say, we want a better world. But then they say, we want free rights to do this. And it's all immoral stuff or indecent stuff or unfair stuff or selfish stuff or greedy stuff. You can't get a better world from that. You can only get a better world from being a better person yourself. You have to start from the roots. And we need, as a society, to go back to the basics of society, the basics of the family unit, and start there. And we need to honour the family unit. We need to promote the family unit to the young of today and show them how valuable the family unit is, and that family is important, but it's only important if it's decent, fair, honest, true, loving, and empathetic, where everyone helps each other out, but no one tries to screw the others over and do them harm or abuse them. And there's no narcissism and things like that. But the young today can't know this unless they're taught it first, and they're not. No one's teaching, parents aren't teaching it. But we have decades and decades of narcissists now, of child abusers. And there is a huge amount of child abusers and narcissists out there have never been found out. So, you know what they do behind closed doors. So we need to break this out into the world and let the young, especially of today, know what's going on, know that they're being force-fed one particular way of lifestyle by either the left or the right, and that lifestyle is not good. It's not doing them any good, and it's not going to prepare them for a long, happy, healthy, loving future in marriage. It's going to prepare them for the opposite, and that's what we shouldn't want, and that's how I kind of think. I'll leave it at that.